Good evening, I'm Ces Orenia Drilon.
I'm Pauline Verzosa.
And I'm Shawn Yao.
The big stories tonight: food security and prices are still top concerns among Filipinos, and in an election year yet. How is government responding? We speak to Agriculture Secretary Francisco Chu Laurel in a bit.
Talks shift again to adjusting setups for classes and work as the heat index climbed to dangerous levels today. Joribel Masalio of Pagasa talks to us about alternatives that can be explored when the heat gets too unbearable.
And 17 days in medical confinement. How is Pope Francis doing? One News anchor Gretchen Ho is now in Rome, and later she will give us a walkthrough of the hospital where the pontiff is staying.
In the recent Social Weather Station survey commissioned by Stratbase Development of agriculture and ensuring food security are top concerns. Yes, 9 out of 10 respondents in that poll said they will vote for midterm election candidates that advocate for these. The survey also showed that 3 of the top 10 concerns of Filipinos have something to do with gut issues, like poverty and hunger and controlling prices of basic goods. Sa madaling salita, malapit sa sikmura.
At the forefront of the price concern is affordable rice. From the undelivered promise of rice at 20 pesos per kilo to rising prices in 2024, the Agriculture Department was at the center of it and was eventually tapped to bring down rice prices ASAP.
And then there's also the problem on smuggling of agricultural products that pose a serious threat to both the economy and public safety. Local farmers are losing out to the influx of illegally imported goods, while the lack of proper testing and permits for these items endanger consumers. Just over the weekend, the Bureau of Plant Industry, or BAI, filed a legal complaint against a local importer for misdeclaring a shipment of yellow onions. And true enough, tests done on the smuggled onions revealed high levels of microbiological contaminants, including E. coli, making them unsafe for human consumption. Last December, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. directed the Bureau of Customs and the DA to intensify the implementation of Republic Act No. 12022, otherwise known as the Anti-Agriculture Economic Sabotage Act, emphasizing the need for stronger action against smugglers.
These are only 3 of the issues that will be addressed tonight by no less than the Agriculture Chief himself, Secretary Francisco Chu Laurel Jr. Good evening to you, Secretary.
Good evening sa inyong tatlo.
Maraming salamat at napaunlakan nyo kami. Mahirap daw po kayong mag-guest. Well, let's begin with, it was only last month that you declared a food security emergency. Are we still under a state of emergency?
Well, technically, we are food secure naman. But the main reason for declaring the food emergency natin, especially on rice, is because yung presyo ay extraordinary, number 1. Number 2 is punong-puno rin ang mga warehouses ng NFA ng bigas, and we have to move this out as soon as possible kasi para makabili tayo ng mga bagong stocks sa maaanihin ng ating mga farmers ngayong harvest season.
So, ibig nyo pong sabihin, pwede nang i-lift ang food security emergency?
Well, hindi pa dahil yung presyo hindi pa nasa tamang halaga, no? At ngayon ang MSRP natin ngayon as of March 1 is 49 pesos. Bumaba din ng world prices ng konti, tapos nag-strengthen ng peso. So we still aim to bring that down to 45 peso, yung 5% broken premium rice by April 1 or March 31. Then kung sumunod naman lahat, at mag-declare din tayo ng maybe MSRP dun sa 25% broken, yung mas murang version. Pagtapos na yung mga labeling requirements at ma-implement yun, Maybe by that time, pag nag-stabilize na at may 30 pesos plus na sa markado at pinakamataas, 45 or, I think baka pwede nang i-lift.
Punta tayo dun sa MSRP that you have set under this food security situation, Secretary Kiko. Marami kasing nagsasabi na maximum suggested retail price. It's only a suggestion. Hindi natin ito mai-impose. Kamusta po ang compliance with your MSRP? And talaga bang nagkaroon kayo ng dialogue with the mga sellers, no? Kung paano ba natin makakamit na talagang magbenta sila at this price?
Well, kaya step by step yung ating pagbaba or pag-issue ng MSRP from 58 pesos, naging 55, from 55, naging 52, then from 52, naging 49 ngayon. And that's why step by step, para yung effect naman sa buong value chain ay hindi masyadong mabigat, no? At they have time to move out their stocks slowly. But at the end of the day, we are doing this, it is sustainable dahil nakita na natin kung ano talaga yung costs from the importers to the viajeros to the traders hanggang sa retailer. Ang objective naman natin hindi sila malugi, no? At dapat kumita rin yung farmers natin. At hihinto ang MSRP natin to a level na hindi rin maapektuhan yung ating mga farmers.
Yun na nga po
it is a suggestion.
If I may interrupt, Secretary, yun na nga po ang while we are looking to ensure that consumers can afford rice, ang mga magsasaka naman ang naghihikahos. They're at the losing end because of the low prices that the floor price for rice sa NFA.
Yung sa floor price naman says to sa NFA, now ang buying action ng NFA is 24 peso per kilo and some areas 23 peso per kilo na palay dry. Ang equivalent niya na sa 42 to 45 pesos eh. Sa presyo na yun, hindi sila malulugi. I am quite sure.
But can you confirm lang na real quick, Secretary Kiko, kung yung MSRP, is that really a suggestion as the name implies, or is this actually strictly imposed? Kasi we're not very clear on that.
Yeah, technically, it is a suggestion, no, na maximum price na sana magbenta sila. And it's basically also an agreement between all the stakeholders na nakausap namin sila, no? Ang sabi nga namin is pag-usapan natin ng ganito at magkasundo tayo kasi kung hindi kayo susunod, we will be forced to recommend na mag-impose ng price ceiling, which is mas magkasakitan doon at it's not good para sa lahat, ano, na magkaroon ng ganon. With MSRP, it is a suggestion, but dapat naman lahat magtulong-tulungan at magkasundo at pagkakasundo naman at walang sakitan.
Secretary, dagdag ko lang po with regards dun sa MSRP. I remember there was a proposal to require importers na i-display po yung SRP sa rice packaging. Is that doable po ba yun, Secretary?
Yung sa labeling natin issue, ang pinagbabawalan natin sa takal is maglagay sila ng brand dahil naloloko ho yung mga ibang mga consumers natin na lalagyan ng brand, lalagyan ng fragrance, pero actually pare-pareho lang ng bigas so that iba makapag-profiteer. So ang ginawa lang natin na lalabas na labeling requirements sa takal-takal is walang brand dyan at walang mention ng premium man yan o fragrant man yan or fancy rice man yan. It's just basically yung type of rice, tsaka yung presyo, tsaka saan galing.
Well, Secretary, one of the purposes nga po ng pag-declare ng food security emergency is makapag-release po ng buffer stock ang NFA. But just last Friday, you have the National Food Authority urging LGUs to buy more rice. With that, Secretary, may delay po ba? Hindi po ba nakaka-purchase agad-agad ang mga LGU kaya nagkaka-delay? And alam naman natin, malapit na po ang harvest season para sa summer. So ano pong latest doon, Secretary?
Well, dahil sa programa natin, while we are ready to sell the rice to the LGUs, but of course, there are certain procedures, no, na kailangan gawin ng LGU. One is kailangan makipag-MOA sila sa FTI, yung food terminals natin. Pangalawa, the mayor has to get a sangguniang resolution para to authorize. And of course, meron pang question kung may budget ba yung LGU or not, no? So there are certain steps na kailangan gawin. So we're requesting them to, para ma-expedite, para matuloy-tuloy na yung programa. Although mayroon ng mga LGU na tuloy-tuloy na kuha, we just need to move it out faster, ano? Para makabawas ng stocks para sa ating mga farmers naman, para makabili na kami sa mga farmers sa tamang halaga.
If we can look a little longer term, Secretary, there were times in the country na we touched self-sufficiency in rice. Very briefly. Time ni GMA, I think, and Marcos Sr. And now we're the biggest importer of rice in the world. Kailan tayo magiging self-sufficient, or is that a dream? Yeah.
No, definitely, says it is not a dream. Ang kailangan natin is more irrigation. Technically, ang flatlands natin is almost 50% lang irrigated. Pag na-irrigate natin ng 100% na lang, assuming, or 95% ng ating flatlands, or about 1.2 million hectares, we can actually produce a lot of rice, at even magka-surplus pa.
So, kailan po?
Dahil ang irrigated land can produce 8 to 12 tons of rice per hectare, while unirrigated land can produce 3 to 4 tons lang per hectare. So, doon sa 1.2 million hectares na yun, kung dagdagan mo ng 5 tons per hectare na dagdag sa 3, or total of 8, yung 5 that's already 6 million tons, and 4.7 lang ang in-import natin ng palay.
Okay, inamyandahan rin po sa...
rice pala.
Sige. Inamyandahan recently yung rice tarification law na naipasa nung Duterte administration. Here, I'm just going to focus on the RCEF, yung Rice Competitiveness Enhancement Fund. Under the original RTL, makakakuha ng 10 billion yung mga farmers. These are for inputs, for technological advancements, and things that they need, Tinaas to 30 billion. We understand, Secretary, na medyo bago lang po yung pagkakaamyenda, pero nagsimula na ba yung rollout? Meaning, are the farmers starting to benefit from the amended rice tarification law, as far as you know?
Which should include irrigation.
Yes, it should include.
Nakatulong talaga yung RTL noong 2019, yung first run niya, sa pag-mechanize ng farming natin, sa seeds, saka sa mga research and iba-iba pa. Yung expanded or extended RTL, yung 30 billion, malaking tulong talaga yun pagka makuha na yung funds at ma-implement yung further mechanization, pati yung investment sa post-harvest na really badly needed by our rice farmers.
Okay,
So, sorry.
Go ahead.
So, going back, yung irrigation na sinasabi nyo na you want to hit at least 90%, anong taon po yun magaganap?
Ang problema is yung cost. To irrigate the 1.2 million hectares, we need 1.2 trillion pesos. So, I guess it's a matter of bibigay ba sa atin yung pondo para gawin yan or hindi. So, I cannot answer that until the funds are really given.
Is it possible to look at a PPP for that kind of project? Are we considering that, Sec?
Ang problema sa PPP, sa ngayon, the previous administration binigay yung tubig ng libre sa mga farmers. So, wala naman papasok ng PPP kung walang payback period. Technically,
Secretary, balikan ko lang po yung food security emergency. I mean, you have lawmakers questioning if this is enough to stabilize prices. Sabi ng isang lawmaker, si Agri-Party Representative Wilbert Lee, that this measure would be useless kung patuloy pa rin na yung mga cartel, di ba, yung mga syndicate na nag-i-inflate ng mga presyo, creating an artificial inflation on rice prices. I wanted to ask about the batting average of the Agriculture Department. Are you able to successfully actually go after these cartels? May mga nasampa na po bang kaso, and have you secured any convictions?
Well, sa rice, actually, wala akong nakitang cartel ever since I started. There clearly is profiteering, but it is hindi naman cartel-based na meron isang humahawak na malaking negosyante or trader or importer na gano'n. It's more of, it's the market. Kasi tumaas na yung presyo ng bigas sa market dahil tumaas ang world prices, naka 35% tariff pa. Pag nung tumaas na yung presyo ng bigas na gano'n sa merkado, tapos bumaba na world market, mas mahirap talaga magpababa ng presyo kaysa pagpataas eh. Yun ang main problem.
Pero yun nga po yung batikos no, ng karamihan, di ba? May EO62 tayo, yun yung nagbababa ng tariffs from 35% to 15%. One of the big issues with that, no, everyone has observed na bumaba na nga ang rice prices sa world market, and yet we are stuck. Like you said, mahirap siyang pababain, madaling itaas. Marami rin nagtataka kung kailan ba i-call off itong EO62 kasi umaaray na raw yung mga local farmers dahil ang baba ng tariffs on imports.
Well, sa akin nga, I think it goes to the same discussion kanina. No? Pag na-achieve na natin na mababa na yung presyo ng imported rice sa merkado at maybe 42 dun sa 5% broken, maybe 35 dun sa 25% broken, then I think pwede natin itaas ulit yan to 35 ulit.
And as to Pauline's point about the smuggling and cartels, perhaps wala tayong nakitang cartel with regard to rice, pero nag-e-exist po yan. Sec, I'm sure we all know, and we hear in the news, we've been hearing the same names over and over again for over a decade. So I'm guessing
More.
More.
I was just a young reporter, so I don't know, 30 years ago.
Right? Paulit-ulit yung mga names. Like, kahit ako, memorize ko na po. Truly, hindi sa rice, pero sa ibang mga produkto like onions, garlic, di ba, may sari-sariling
Or
cartel.
traders who really...
Middlemen.
Yes, middlemen.
Yes. Mayroon na ba tayong nahuli doon sa atang anti-sabotage act? At what's the plan? Maraming
yes.
excited.
Actually, marami na tayong na-blacklist na companies, especially sa vegetables like onion, carrots. 16 companies na if I recall it. And mga ilan na rin doon nasampahan ng kaso. Meron pa nga tayong nahuli noong September 2023 na onion smuggler na from what I understand, nakakulong pa hanggang ngayon eh. Kaya lang, siyempre, hindi lang napapansin. Kanina, nakahuli kami ng 19 containers ng isda na pinapasok as frozen taro, pero actually naman isda kanina. Tuloy-tuloy kaming, ang BOC from what I understand, 8 to 10 cases, The DA is going filed yesterday, lalabas na balita, then meron naman kami next week pa-filean ulit. So tuloy-tuloy naman. Tuloy-tuloy.
Well, Secretary, as you probably heard Cez earlier saying that 9 out of 10 Filipinos or respondents in a strat-based survey said that they will vote for candidates who advocate for food security and the development of agriculture. Nabanggit na rin po dyan, syempre yung pangako po ng administrasyon na ibaba po sa 20 pesos per kilo ang rice. We have the midterm elections coming and they say it's a referendum of the accomplishments of the admin. Possible pa po ba, Secretary, ang 20 pesos per kilo, knowing na the President has 3 years left in his admin?
Alam niyo, nung pinag-aaralan ko mabuti yan because of my job now, nung panahon na pinangako ng Presidente yan, ang presyo ng fertilizer was only 700 pesos per sack. Now, the price of fertilizer is 1,400 pesos per sack. So doon pa lang, I can tell you straight na hindi kaya yung 20 pesos sa ganitong presyo ng fertilizer. Pero pag bumaba ang presyo ng fertilizer, ibang usapan na yun.
So at the current prices, kung 700 dating fertilizer per bag, ngayon nasa 1,400, does that mean the lowest possible price per kilo of rice that we can look at and expect is 40 pesos?
40 pesos for yung 5% broken. Yeah.
You mentioned
25%
35.
broken should be less.
Ano yung nasa 35? O, kanina sabi nyo 30
You mentioned
plus.
35.
25% broken.
How about shifting to another grain? Adlay, for instance, which farmers...
Well, we are also looking into yung single pass rice, kasi mas mataas ang recovery nun. But of course, also production efficiencies kailangan natin tignan. Sa ngayon, ang milling efficiency natin because of our old equipment or lack of equipment is only maybe 57%. Pero kung bago yung mga gamit at modern at efficient yan, nasa 68% na recovery. So, ibig sabihin, we can produce more, get more rice out of the same number of palay. So, it's a combination of many things. And unfortunately, there's no short-term solution, only medium-term solutions available.
Pero you know,
unless we subsidize, of course.
Right. Secretary, hopes were high kasi nung simula nung termino ni President Marcos na magkakaroon ng mas magandang food security plan para sa ating bansa. Pero ngayong midterm, parang anong na-achieve? If you were to, tell the
One thing I can
voters.
guarantee is that we are food secure in terms of quantity and of the food we need. Hindi tayo mauubusan ng pagkain. Ang question lang ngayon is basically yung presyo. Yung presyo can be solved slowly through rebuilding the infrastructure of yung agri sector natin. Sa totoo lang, pinabayaan ng 40 years ang ating agri sector. Ito, diretsuhan na. Hindi nag-invest ng previous administrations.
True. But every administration promises this, and so did BBM.
Well, ang programa natin ngayon ay totally iba sa programa ng previous administrations. I'm willing to entertain yung mga kung sino man yung sumalaman talaga yung programa and what needs to be done para makita nila iba yung scale ng iniisip namin, saka iba yung focus ng current administration and the current DA, katulad ng to solve yung gusto niya natin yung problema na 4 pesos na tomato saka yung akit baba ng presyo. Ang kailangan natin is mega food hub, let's say somewhere in Clark and another one in Quezon para ma-secure yung ating GMA and other areas. Para lahat ng farmer may malaking bagsakan na mapupuntahan where they can get a fair price and then the logistics cost bababa. Of course, yung cold storage network, nobody in the last 40 years invested in a nationwide cold storage system. Ngayon pa lang natin gagawin yon. Yung food terminal natin dati na was built by the old President Marcos Sr. before, ginawang leasing company na lang ng mga previous administrations at ngayon lang natin i-revive ulit. So maraming nasayang na oportunidad at oras at hindi talaga natugunan ng pansin yung ating agricultural sector for so many years. Ngayon lang, itong administrasyon lang.
Naging issue yun, nice na you guys brought it up, Ses and Secretary, because matagal na yan, yung infra, pati sa logistical, that whole supply chain,
Yeah.
Marami tayong issues, right? You mentioned cold storage, yung mga warehouses for grain, etc., which I understand, dapat gobyerno yung nagtatayo. But now, I know a lot of people, a lot of friends, yun yung negosyo nila, cold storage. Kulang din tayo. I think you gave a talk maybe 6 months ago and you said even the ports should be improved for food, right? Are we looking into investments there? And
PPP ulit.
PPP, alam na ni Ses yung tatanong ko. Papunta na ako doon. Ito mas pwedeng i-PPP, di ba?
Oo
mas
nga.
pwede.
Yes.
Oh.
Well,
What's
yung
the plan?
sa cold storage na frozen, yan pwede i-PPP yan. But yung cold storage is for vegetables, hindi. Dahil walang mag-invest yan kundi gobyerno lang until the concept is there, Sa ports, pwedeng i-PPP yan. Sa silos and grain terminals or dryers, I think pwedeng i-PPP yan. And we are already not only looking into that, we are already talking to some possible investors.
We could take an hour to discuss this, Secretary. I know you have so much plans, pero in closing, you mentioned we are food secure, but we import a lot. So,
That's kind of contradictory a bit.
yeah, food secure because they're imports.
Yes.
So, when will we actually be food secure in terms of supplying our own needs, growing our own
Production,
needs?
yeah.
Oo, in
Well,
closing.
yung pagdating nga sa vegetables, I think more or less we can be secure in our onion, We just need the storage systems. Kasi marami natin tinatapon, Ganon din sa ibang mga vegetables. And ang problema natin sa vegetables is actually seasonal, Dahil we're subject to yung weather, Na uulan. So ang solusyon din para sa akin is greenhouses talaga, na where you can plant and harvest whole year round it.
Yeah.
So that is the solution.
Okay.
Of course, sa baboy naman, ang pinakamalaking problema is the feed cost, para pababain yan, which is may plano rin kami na kailangan mag-plant tayo ng corn and maybe cassava around feed mills para they can produce their own feed with least cost of logistics, Maraming solusyon na nasa table na ginagawa natin ngayon. Technically, I've just been on the job 1.5 years, no? Some people might say matagal na yan, but honestly, in the whole scheme of things, ay sa laki nung problema at laki nung kailangan ayusin, I need more time. We need more time, but hopefully before my term ends, or in another year siguro makakita na kayo ng significant mararamdaman na yung mga programa ginagawa natin.
Alright, marami pong salamat. And ito kasi ay issue na malapit sa bituka ng mga Pilipino. So thank you so much. And we hope to see more of you, Secretary. Department of Agriculture Secretary Francisco Chularel, maraming salamat.
Salamat po sa oras at opportunity. Thank you.
Right, we're going to take a quick break, but coming up next, are we looking at scorching days ahead? Well, the heat index tomorrow is still forecast to be on dangerous levels. That and more stories when we return. Keep it here on One News.
You're watching The Big Story here on One News. New Presidential Communications Office Secretary Jay Ruiz is under fire for his alleged connection to a company that bagged government contracts worth millions. PCO was quick to brand the report as false and inaccurate. Ria Fernandez has this story.
New Secretary Jay Ruiz faces his first controversy just days into his appointment to the Presidential Communications Office, or PCO. His alleged media company, Digital 8 Incorporated, bagged millions of pesos worth of projects with the Philippine Charity Sweepstakes Office months before he assumed office. But for Claire Castro, Palace Press Officer and PCO Undersecretary, there's nothing wrong with these dealings since they were sealed before Ruiz was tapped for a government post. All he has to do now is disengage from the company.
Kailangan din naman po niyang kumita. So ngayon po na kami po ay na-appoint, kailangan po talaga mag-divest kung ang interest po ay may conflict. So kailangan po talaga mag-divest. Ang batas naman po natin ay allowed po, no, mag-divest ng shares or interest sa anumang kumpanya na pag-aari niya within 60 days from the time na siya ay nag-assume ng position.
On the same day Castro came to Ruiz's defense, the PCO issued a statement. It said Secretary Jay Ruiz was not an incorporator nor director of Digital 8 and has never owned any shares in the company. He was merely Digital 8's authorized representative to the joint venture agreement due to his position as head of its sales and marketing. It also said that he resigned from the company on January 15, 2025 and was replaced as the company's representative through a board resolution on January 17, 2025, more than a month before he was appointed PCO Secretary. IBC 13 likewise refuted a report saying it was able to submit all needed requirements to qualify for the PCSO project and win the bidding in December 2024 as single calculated and responsive bidder. In a chance interview with the Malacanang press corps after PCO's flag-raising ceremony on Monday, Ruiz had this to say to so-called intrigues.
Nasa hilik na makatulog. It will take space and time. Iisipin mo ba? Mga gumagawa ng kung ano-anong kwento na wala namang totoo.
But Ruiz says he will be fair when evaluating the current crop of PCO employees. Recall that Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin ordered previous presidential appointees in the office to submit their courtesy resignations to give the new chief a free hand in selecting his own officials.
Walang personalan na kinakailangan natin gawin dahil kailangan niya ng pagbabago na hindi dapat kasi nangyayari kasi unang-unang maraming leakages. Maraming intriga. Dapat confidential lahat ng orders, lahat ng papeles dito. We treat it as confidential.
For News 5, I'm Ria Fernandez. We are One News.
In other news, Malacanang wants to find out how motorcycles donated by alleged Chinese spies ended up with the Philippine National Police. An exclusive report by Reuters identified 3 Chinese nationals charged with espionage behind the donations. The local government of Manila admitted receiving 10 motorcycles from a certain Wang Yongyi of the Xiaoxing volunteer group, but insisted that all had proper documentation. Wang was among those arrested for supposedly spying on Malacanang and other vital government establishments last month. Palace Press Officer and PCO Undersecretary Claire Castro said the government will investigate PNP forces and LGUs that received these donations.
Hindi po yan pababayaan ng Pangulo. Talaga po kapag kabugan yan ang balita at nakarating sa atin yan, kailangan po talagang imbestigahan yan. Hindi po to dapat palampasin. Wala pong masama kung tatanggap tayo ng donasyon if it is done in good faith. So kung ito naman po pala ay parang ibinigay, pero merong kakaibang dahilan for that, kailangan po nating imbestigahan yan.
Meantime, schools suspended classes today as heat index climbed to 46 degrees Celsius in some areas, including Metro Manila. Now, that's quite a leap compared to the 37 degrees recorded yesterday. Pag-asa says it's a sign that the dry season is coming. Among those that suspended classes today are the cities of Malabon and Las Piñas. Manila and Marikina also followed in the afternoon. Meanwhile, the cities of Caloocan, Parañaque, and Valenzuela implemented asynchronous or blended learning in response to the intense heat. Tomorrow, San Juan City already announced they are adjusting class schedules for all public schools. The morning shift will be from 6 to 10 a.m., while afternoon classes will be held from 3 to 7 p.m. so that they can avoid the hottest hours of the day.
According to Pag-asa, they are seeing the southeast monsoon, or northeast monsoon rather, gradually moving away from the country. Their forecast is that temperatures could further rise in the coming days. So as early as now, they are recommending adjustments, not just for schools, but for offices as well.
We are open to collaborations with private agencies or even other public agencies such as DOLE if they want to conduct investigations regarding the effect of heat index.
I-consider ng mga nasa labor sector, employment, kung pwede rin na rin mag-shift to work from home, ganyan, or other alternative para kumbaga hindi lang naman din talaga yung mga estudyante yung naapektuhan.
And now let's discuss with Joribel Masalio, Chief of Pag-asa's Climate Impact Assessment Section, further this issue of the rising temperatures. Good evening po sa inyo.
Yes, good evening po. Good evening, ladies. Good evening, Ma'am Ces, Ma'am Shawn, and of course, Ma'am Pauline. Good evening.
Since when have you observed po the weakening of the northeast monsoon?
Actually, since papunta na po tayo sa dry season, so beginning of this March talaga is nagwi-weaken na po yung ating northeast monsoon, and eventually in the coming days, we will have a press release that for the termination po ng ating northeast monsoon or ng ating amihan.
And the start of summer.
Yeah, the official start of
summer.
Ano po tayo, dry season. Since ang Pilipinas po, we are nasa tropics, so we only have 2 seasons, the wet season and the dry season.
So, official start of the dry season.
Naalala niyo yung joke dyan? Hot or hotter? Yun ang
Dalawa lang ang pagpipilian.
Pero ito yung Joribel, kasi yung nakakatakot, no? Biglang kahapon, hindi, mainit,
Oo
pero
nga.
hindi naman intense, biglang 46 degrees Celsius.
Biglaan. Parang nakakataranta. No?
Dahil ba to sa transition, or is this what we should expect this coming dry season?
Actually naman po, ang heat index, ang sinasabi natin, this is different po from kung ano po yung observed temperature natin sa kapaligiran natin. So, when we say heat index, ito po yung apparent heat na nararamdaman ng isang tao, lalo na kapag siya po ay nasa labas, kasi may added factor po tayo, yung tinatawag natin na relative humidity o yung alinsangan ng panahon, yun pong halumigmig kung saan, ito po yung nararamdaman ng isang tao na feels like temperature, kumbaga. So, mas mataas po ito kaysa dun sa temperature na nasa labas lang.
Pero Joribel, sige, go ahead.
At kung, yun nga po, kung sinabi nyo na ito na po ba yung start ng na talaga, tag-init. So, ito po yung isa sa mga precursor. And apparently, dito naman po sa amin sa Pag-asa, nag-i-issue po kami ng heat index. Start po talaga ng March 1 up to June for this year. So yearly po 'yon na ginagawa natin since 2010.
Pero Joribel, linawin lang natin, 46 degrees ba talaga yung na-record na heat index today? Saang mga lugar yon? Kasi forecast lang yun, I understand, kahapon eh.
Yes
So
po.
ano ba yung mga temperature talaga na na-record today?
Or at least yung
Okay,
heat
so-
index.
Heat index din,
Tama.
yes, yes.
Okay po.
Did you
So, to set the
actually
record straight?
predict it? Did you actually predict it correctly? I guess yun ang
Okay
tanong
po.
ni Pao.
So, yun nga po, to set the record straight, so we have forecasted po na magkakaroon po tayo ng 46 degrees, March 3 and March 4. But then, for this day po, at 2 p.m. sa amin pong Science Garden, yung station po natin dito, we have recorded po, yung heat index po natin is recorded and computed, ito po yung actual, is only 37 degrees at 1 p.m. and then 2 p.m. 36 degrees. So, medyo malayo po siya dun sa 46 degrees, pero ang mahalaga po dito is nasa range po siya na pareho dun sa kung saan meron po tayong extreme caution. So, ibig sabihin po, nagbigay po tayo ng babala na makakaranas po yung ating mga kababayan, lalo na po yung mga nasa outdoor, may mga outdoor activities, mga estudyante, mga commuters, na maaari pong ganito po yung maramdaman nilang init ng panahon sa kanila pong katawan.
Or siguro to anticipate na nitong Marso, ganyan ang magiging temperatura. Kahit hindi na meet today. Kahit hindi swak yung
Yes
yung
po. So,
forecast
asahan
nila.
po natin na in the coming days and in the coming months up to May po talaga nagpipik yung ating heat index, kung saan mas matataas po yung ating mga naire-record sa buong bansa po.
Anong expectation natin this coming dry season? No? Sanay na sanay ako magsalita ng summer. Pero itong dry season, kasi last year,
tag-init na lang,
tag-init,
Tagalogin natin.
tag-tuyo. Because dati, no, hindi naman laging merong El Nino, La Nina cycle. Pero napapansin ko, Joribel, parang dumadalas na parang every year na lang, El Nino, La Nina, El Nino, La Nina. Magko-continue ba tayo this year? Kasi last year ganun yung nangyari. And true enough, grabe yung mga ulan after the sobrang init na tag-init.
Yes po. So, ito na nga yung mga tinatawag natin na ito na ba yung climate change? Ito na ba ito sa mga nararanasan natin? So, dumadalas po talaga yung ating mga extreme weather events, hindi lang po itong mga tag-init. Mas nararamdaman po natin yung malalakas po na bagyo. Ayan, very evident po sa atin yan. So, ito po yung tinatawag natin na mga impacts na po ng climate change kung saan nagkakaroon po tayo ng mga extreme events, mga matataas na temperatura, madalas na mga pagbisita ng mga bagyo sa atin, mas malalakas, tapos kahit po habagat, malalakas din ang mga idinudulot na ulan. So yun po yung mga nararanasan natin na isa po talaga sa mga effects na po ng climate change.
And also extreme heat. Kasama na
Yes
doon.
po.
Kasama na doon.
So every year, painit ng painit.
Yeah.
No? It's always the hottest year on record.
This is predicted to be the hottest year.
Actually,
2020.
2024 po, April is the one of the hottest months for the record po din yun. And then, so this year po, it is also predicted na magkakaroon pa rin po tayo ng mga extreme heat events na may experience po natin. Hindi lamang po sa bansa natin, kundi worldwide po.
Yeah. So we can exceed that April 2024 record this year.
Sana naman po hindi, no? Kasi ano po natin dito, yung ating pong mga kababayan na mas naapektuhan.
Yes.
But what could cause, sorry the difference in your forecast, medyo mga 10 degrees, 8 degrees yung layo Parang pinawisan ako sobra kanina just thinking that it was hot.
Pero
But
actually,
parang nasuggest nyo lang ata
nakapaglakad
Ay,
ako
hindi
ng
naman po.
4:30 p.m. kasama nung aso ko dalawa. No, normally, pag mainit, hantayin ko hanggang magabi. So, alam ko na, actually, parang sabi ko, parang dito 46 kasi
Wasn't
medyo,
that
Yun na nga,
wasn't
it
that
was a
bad.
bit off the mark. A bit.
So, ayun po, syempre po, forecast, hindi naman po natin masasabi na 100%. And siguro po isa dun sa mga factor na hindi po natin na-meet or sabihin natin na yun nga, it's a 10-degree difference is because po na hindi po tayo nagkaroon ng inaasahan natin na kasi pag mga ganitong season, kung mapapansin nyo po, in the past few days, nung mga nakaraang linggo, meron po tayong mga pag-ulan sa hapon or sa tanghali. Tapos after that, mawawala na po. So kung nagkaroon po siguro ng pag-ulan ngayong araw na to sa ibang areas kung saan mas magiging yung atin pong kapaligiran ay ma-vapor, so meron po siyang kumbaga,
moisture.
mas mahalumigmig. Ayun,
Okay.
so mas mataas po kasi dapat ang relative humidity. For this day po kasi mababa po. 45 lang po yung inabot niya. Kaya po mababa rin po yung computed natin at observe na naging heat index po natin. So yun po yung isang factor kung bakit po hindi po talaga natin na-meet yung sinasabi po natin na 46 degrees.
Okay, Joribel, ito, so dahil nga papunta na tayo sa tag-init na panahon, paano ba natin dapat paghandaan ang summer? Lagi naman natin naririnig yung stay indoors, di ba? Pati ang
Yes po.
mag-hydrate. Pero baka may iba pang payo ang pag-asa kung anong pwede gawin.
Yes. So, sa ating mga kababayan po, especially po yung ating mga estudyante, so nire-recommend po talaga namin na magsuot po ng mga light clothes. Especially po talagang light as in dapat white lang siya, pastel colors kasi po ito po yung mga nagre-reflect po ng heat back to the atmosphere, unlike po yung mga black dark clothes na mas maiinitan po tayo. So the same goes po with sa ating mga workers na nasa labas na ganun din po ang isuot, and of course magdala po tayo lagi ng payong, hindi lang sa ulan kundi sa init ng araw. Magsuot po ng mga cap or iba pang pananggalang, shades, and then maglagay po tayo ng sunblock. Makakatulong po ito kasi syempre para po sa skin natin, and also yun nga po, mag-hydrate aside from palagi rin tayong dapat na iisipin natin na kung hindi naman po kailangang lumabas, magstay na lang po tayo indoor. And doon naman po sa mga nasa labas na, as much as possible, let's make it a point na hindi naman talaga tayo yung naka-expose sa tirik na araw. Kumbaga, let's go dun sa may mga shade, o kung naghihintay man ng jeep, nandun tayo sa tamang hintayan para maprotektahan pa rin po yung ating, syempre yung ating katawan.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Joribel Masalio, Chief of Pag-asa's Climate Impact Assessment Section. Maraming salamat.
Salamat po sa opportunity at sana po ay marami po kaming maitulong sa ating mga kababayan sa ganitong panahon po natin.
We're definitely with you on that. But for now, we have to pause for a quick break. Right after that, we will take you to Gemelli Hospital in Rome, where Pope Francis is currently admitted. Our very own Gretchen Ho will be reporting to us live after this break. Keep it here. Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us here on The Big Story.
Europe is now rallying behind Ukraine after its president got grilled at the Oval Office recently.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. But right now, you don't. Yeah, you're playing cards.
Mr. President.
You're playing cards.
Serious.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III.
What do you think
You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country. That's
with
back
all
to you.
respect to your
Far
country.
more than a lot of people said they
respect.
should have.
Have you said thank you once this
A lot
entire
of
meeting?
times. We are staying in our country, staying strong from the very beginning of the war. We've been alone, and we are thankful.
Following the heated exchange among Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, U.S. President Donald Trump, and his VP J.D. Vance, European leaders reaffirmed their support for Ukraine. Among those who publicly backed Zelensky was French President Emmanuel Macron, who posted on his social media, quote, "There is an aggressor, Russia. There is a victim, Ukraine," end of quote. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz and Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk also spoke and reiterated Europe's commitment to Ukraine's defense.
Wichtig ist, dass hier alle noch einmal deutlich versichert haben, dass sie die Ukraine unterstützen wollen. Sie ist das angegriffene Land, Opfer der russischen Aggression. Das ist die Wahrheit, die unverändert für alle ganz klar ist.
Wszyscy też są przekonani, że Europa musi wziąć na siebie coraz więcej odpowiedzialności i zacząć dźwigać te ciężary związane z budową przemysłu zbrojeniowego, zwiększonej pomocy dla Ukrainy w czasie wojny, większych wydatków w ramach NATO na swoje budżety obronne.
British Prime Minister Keir Starmer convened a special European Leaders Summit immediately, which was attended by leaders and representatives from 18 countries. During the meeting, Starmer said European leaders agreed to craft a peace deal to bring to the U.S. Macron and Starmer are also proposing a partial one-month truce between Russia and Ukraine.
We will keep the military aid flowing and keep increasing the economic pressure on Russia to strengthen Ukraine now. We will go further to develop a coalition of the willing to defend a deal in Ukraine and to guarantee the peace.
We've now agreed that the United Kingdom, along with France and possibly one or two others, will work with Ukraine on a plan to stop the fighting, and then we'll discuss that plan with the United States.
Meantime, Philippine Ambassador to the U.S. Jose Manuel Romualdez does not believe the Oval Office blowout and its aftermath will affect Manila and Washington's relations.
I don't think so. I think what's important for us, again, is that what happened really recently, as I said, in the Oval Office is really, I think President Trump really wants to have a peace agreement between Russia and Ukraine. And being a deal maker, as Secretary Rubio described it, he sees this opportunity. They would like to see all of this resolved at the soonest possible time. It's something that, as I said, will keep many of us awake because it can very well affect our part of the world down the road.
Meanwhile, the latest health update from the Vatican says Pope Francis slept well throughout the night. And Morning Matters host and the Big Story alumnus, Gretchen Ho, is in Rome to give us updates live from Italy. Gretchen, it's nice to see you there, but you know, we've been hearing varying reports on the Pope. May mga reports nagsasabing gumagaling na siya, but there are also some reports that he's in critical condition. What is the latest status, the actual status on the Pope?
Buonasera, Pauline, Shawn, and Cess. Buonasera, Pilipinas. I really left the show to attend to more important matters here. And speaking of answering your question, the mood is actually hopeful here in Rome as the Pope enters his 17th day of confinement at the Gemelli Hospital. This place where I'm standing at, this is the plaza that holds the statue of Pope John Paul II, a sacred space where many have come to offer their prayers, to light a candle, to give a drawing. And right here, standing beside it, standing tall and looking over it, is actually the room of Pope Francis up on the 10th floor of the Gemelli Hospital. That's the papal apartment where most popes have stayed. For example, Pope John Paul II was there in 2005, and for several times he looked over and gave that as a gift for the Catholic faithful to get a glimpse of him. We haven't seen that from Pope Francis, although tama kayo dyan, the update this morning was he slept well throughout the night. That has been the update for the past 4 nights, as I can recall. Usually, meron talagang report ng 8 a.m. na pumapasok tungkol sa kanyang pagtulog sa gabi. Madalas yan yung update. Speaking of his condition, it is a good sign that he is now off the mechanical ventilator, but he's still on supplemental high oxygenation flow. So that is actually to help him recuperate from the double pneumonia that he's experiencing. At tinanong natin sa loob, sa ating insider na mga kababayan, meron tayong nakitang Pilipino sa loob. Ang sabi sa atin, minsan okay, minsan hindi. So it is critical in a sense that he is 88 years old. And the other part of it is that his comorbidities may have been affecting his the speed of his recovery.
Diba, he had a section of one of his lungs taken out ages ago, no, matagal na. Pero Gretch, nabanggit mo may Pinoy healthcare workers. We know Pinoy healthcare workers are everywhere. Meron din dyan sa loob ng Gemelli.
Actually, wala tayong nakita healthcare worker. Yung nakita natin kanina, waiter, kasi kumakain kami sa loob. Yun nga yung maganda rito, Shawn, says Pauline. Nakakapasok yung mga tao. May police sa paligid, pero mabilis kami nakapasok. Kahit may dala akong camera, may tripod ako, wala naman sumita sa akin. There's also a chapel inside where you can pray, and actually there was a holy hour for the Pope. But we sat down to eat a little bit. May Pinoy na lumapit sa amin, tinanong namin kamusta, anong nababalitaan ninyo. Sabi yun nga, minsan okay, minsan hindi. Bumabaro kasi yung doktor na tumitingin sa kanya. I guess that is because nga of the delicate situation of this age and also the comorbidities. So the Pope is not yet out of the woods, and we will continue to monitor his health. We will know the full medical report later on. They usually send that at 7 p.m. here in Rome.
Gretchen, I had a chance to see your report at 1 a.m. there, Rome time. And you mentioned how dear the Filipino community is to the Pope. What's the sentiment among them now?
Actually, malungkot. Malungkot talaga kasi nga Pope Francis has always had a special affection for Filipinos, and that is evidence in his relationship with Cardinal Tagle. Dati pa lang noong 2013, nung gagawin pa lang Santo Papa si Pope Francis, magkakilala na to silang dalawa, talagang malapit. And remember when he went to the Philippines in 2015, grabe yung pagsalubong sa kanya ng mga Pinoy. Pumunta siya sa Tacloban, binisita niya yung mga nasalanta ng bagyo, nilapitan siya ng mga kabataan sa UST. And ang sabi nung aking nakausap kahapon, kaya tayo paborito raw ni Pope Francis is that because we bring people to the church. We bring them back to the church. When you see the churches here, they are lined with Filipinos everywhere. Sabi nga ni Cardinal Tagle sa kanyang recollection kahapon, communities, Filipino communities dito, pero paliit ng paliit yung miyembro ng community. Ang biro niya, nagkakaroon na ng divisiveness. So his message there was to remain united in one gospel and one truth. And it was the same message, coincidentally, that Pope Francis gave yesterday. Kahit may sakit siya, he asked people to pray for peace for those tormented in Ukraine and other parts of the world. Kaya talagang, same heart. I guess he's also a Jesuit. Si Cardinal Tagle, nakikita niya na taong-tao, ganoon din ang mga Pilipino, kaya malapit ang mga Pilipino sa puso ni Pope at baliktad din, malapit din siya sa atin.
I don't know, Gretch, if you can accommodate this request, pero pwede patingin, ano bang nangyayari dyan sa paligid mo, dyan sa labas ng gym? Kasi nakikita natin yan lagi, yung scene na yan, di ba? Pero usually malayo.
Ikot-ikot siya.
Ikot-ikot siya.
Ayan, ito, yan, okay. Kanina ko pa inaantayan, Shawn
Alam ko bumili siya ng tripod. Kailangan sulitin.
Let me get off my formal hat and actually show you around. I haven't done this for other newscasts, but for you guys, I will. So, ito makikita mo, yung mga message ng mga bata rito, sige, titignan ko dito, mga message ng mga bata rito, yan, ito, kung titignan mo, tinranslate para sa atin ng kaibigan natin dito. Infant schools ito, and then this is from kids, and then you see drawings over there. Tapos dito rin from the youth yung nakasulat. So talagang malapit sa kabataan ito si Pope Francis. Tapos meron nga yung mga balloons, yung mga kandila. Although it is a working day today, it is a Monday, so that's why we don't see any Pinoys around. But later on at 7 p.m. or 9 p.m. rather in Vatican City, there will be a rosary for all Filipinos, and that happens every night.
Wow.
All right, we thank you so much, Gretchen.
Ito, may trivia pa ako bago
Wait, oo nga.
Ganun ba?
Oo, nag-text siya, meron daw siyang trivia.
Sige.
Hinanta ako to para sa Big Story dahil mahal ko yung show na to. Okay. So this one is a book that I bought in the library inside. It is entitled Hope. It is the first ever autobiography of a pope. Dapat daw nakasulat dito, ilalabas ito after his death. Pero nilabas na siya, 2025 ito. Pero yung isang libro na pinakita ko doon sa ating group chat, ang pangalan nun ay Life. Doon sa libro na yon, nandoon si Cardinal Antonio Tagle, na sinabi ni Pope Francis na kinakwento niya noong 2013, nakita na sila sa airport, Fiumicino Airport sa Italy. Tapos sinabi niya na noon pa man, napag-uusapan na papable si Cardinal Antonio Tagle. Galing yan kay Pope Francis. Tapos, the next day nakita sila sa Vatican City, niloko ni Pope Francis si Cardinal, sinabi niya, oh, may nakita akong bata kahapon sa airport. Kasi naka-jeans lang pala si Cardinal Tagle. Mukha siyang bata, di ba? Singket, tapos payat. So talagang ang ganda ng relationship ng dalawa, that he is even in the book of Pope Francis. The other one was written by somebody else. This one that I have was, I think, by Pope Francis himself. So uuwiin ko to dyan sa Pilipinas.
Okay, and we're adding that to our list, our reading
Since
list.
you mentioned Cardinal Tagle, how is his mood naman? I know that he's also offering prayers, but
And
I'm
I
sure
also know Gretchen went to one of his services. Nakita ko yung report mo.
Oo, dun sa kadiliman ng simbahan.
Tapos naka-black
Okay,
ka.
so,
Dun sa video na yon.
Alam naman natin talagang magkalapit. Sobrang favorite ate ni Pope Francis si Cardinal Tagle, tinatanong natin dito. Lalo sinasabi, very close talaga sila. In terms of mood, you could see that his heart is breaking for what's happening to Pope Francis. He doesn't want to talk that much about what's happening, I guess, because also of what's being said. We know that his name is always on the list. Pag nakikita mo online, lagi siya nasa top 5 na maaaring pumalit sa kasakaling may mangyari kay Pope Francis. Ayaw niya magsalita. He wants to remain prudent about the whole situation. But also, meron tayong ibang priest na nakausap dito. Sinasabi, maraming fake news ang lumalabas online saying that he has ambitions to become the next pope. So, yun yung gusto nilang ibelay dito. I mean, there isn't any posturing that I'm feeling here. Is really what's refreshing to me is hearing him address the Filipino audience. I mean, in Tagalog. At inaalagaan niya talaga para siyang may ministry dito. Hindi lang ang mga lay people, hindi lang mga OFW, kundi yung mga pare na nandito, mga madre na nandito for their own formation. So he is a leader here, and I think special sa atin yon na alam natin meron tayong direct link kay Pope Francis through Cardinal Tagle.
Well, Gretchen, we've run out of time, but thank you so much for taking us with you there in the Vatican. And we'll speak to you again soon. That was Morning Matters host, Gretchen Ho.
Bye, Gretch. Maraming salamat.
Arrivederci.
Arrivederci. Buon appetito. Hindi, okay.
That was a great insight about the not posturing and,
Actually, apparently it's considered bad taste among the cardinals to talk about yung mga ganitong pamumulitika. I think they're above it.
Oh, pero behind the scenes.
Yeah, di ba? Napanood mo na ba yung conclave?
Hindi pa nga eh.
Pero, ito na. End na natin para
pwede na natin overtime na.
Yes,
sorry
overtime
naman.
Hindi na namin pag-usapan yung Oscars. That's it for the big story tonight.
I know.
We are One News. All sides, all the time.
Oh, thanks for watching. Good night.